Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman McGovern and Ranking Member Paul. The amendment I have three amendments. One, number 20, Sublon 125, I have offered simply authorizes appropriations legislation that has been carried out the past 10 years. My amendment codifies the annual reservations of 1.5% of State Drinking Water Act funding for the U.S. territories. This 1.5% level for the territories is already included annually in appropriations legislation covering the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund every year since 2010. Current law authorizes only one third of 1%, and prior to fiscal year 2010, my district, the Northern Mariana Islands, along with Guam, American Samoa, and the United States Virgin Islands, all shared that amount, just 0.33% of annual Safe Drinking Water Act funding. Thankfully, since 2010, we were able to increase funding to 1.5%, and it has been a tremendous help to improve the drinking water systems in the insular areas. The one island in particular, the island of Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands, still remains the only United States municipality without access to 24-hour potable water, a serious public health issue. Although so much progress has been made since funding increased a decade ago, while still not reliably potable, nearly all homes, households on Saipan now have 24-hour water. Much more work is needed, however, to improve and modernize the water infrastructure in the islands. In 2015, the Environmental Protection Agency reported to Congress how much is needed to bring our insular area water systems up to the national standard. About 200 million for the Marianas alone, and about 300 million each for Guam and American Samoa. We absolutely cannot afford to go back. My amendment will simply authorize the current appropriations level and lessen the annual funding uncertainty. Similarly, the bill before us, H.R. 2, codifies the 1.5% annual reservation of available Clean Water Act state revolving funds for the territories. And this percentage of funding has also been included in annual appropriations since fiscal year 2010. And the additional funding has provided much needed resources to support our public wastewater system. My simple no cost amendment does the same for Safe Drinking Water Act funds. I ask that this amendment be found in order. The amendment number 23 sublon 124 is another simple technical correction that allows ferry boat formula program funds and territorial highway program funds to be used for public ferries between two U.S. territories. Currently, utilization of ferry boat or territorial highway funds are limited. The funds may be used for public ferries that operate within a U.S. state or territory. So, for instance, the funds could be used for a service between Seattle and Bainbridge Island, Washington, within state ferries. Or the funds could be used for service between the islands of St. John, St. Thomas, and St. John in the Virgin Islands, within territory ferries. Also, ferry boat funds may be used for public ferries that operate between two adjoining U.S. states, say from Delaware to New Jersey. The funds can even be used for ferries between a U.S. state and a foreign country, from Maine to Canada, and that's fine. But here is the problem. Those same funds cannot be used for public ferries between two U.S. territories. So even though in my district, the Northern Mariana Islands, we could use federal ferry boat or highway funds for a ferry south from the island of Saipan to the island of Tinian, then on to the island of Rota, we would have to stop right there. We could not use the same federally funded ferry to go the additional 30 miles to the U.S. island territory of Guam. That would be territory to territory travel, and that is not allowed an allowable use of ferry boat or highway funds in current law. Now, what is the rationale for a national transportation policy that does not support travel between two nearby United States territories? Do we really want a transportation policy that supports ferries from the US to Canada but does not support ferries from point to point within the United States? That does not make sense. So the amendment makes the necessary technical correction to allow for travel between two territories. And to be clear, my amendment does not alter the amount of money authorized for the ferry operation. Amendment, my amendment simply fixes an anomaly in federal transportation law. I urge my colleagues to support this no-cost, common-sense amendment to H.R. 2. And finally, Mr. Chairman, numbers 264 Sublon 127 incorporates the text of my bill, HR 1809 to HR 2, the Moving Forward Act. Co-sponsors to my bill include all territorial delegates and Ms. Norton of DC. HR 1809 is a bipartisan legislation that was reported out of the Natural Resources Committee by unanimous consent in July of last year. It also passed the House last Congress by unanimous consent, though the Senate failed to act. This amendment simply gives the insular areas and the District of Columbia the same base funding as states under the Pittman-Robertson and Dingell-Johnson Acts. This is similar to the changes to the Land and Water Conservation Fund that Congress approved and was enacted into law in 2019. Pittman Robertson and Dingell Johnson support a variety of conservation, education, and recreation programs at no cost to taxpayers. However, while current law guarantees every state a 1% Pittman Robertson share, Puerto Rico's capped at a quarter of 1%, and the other territories receive just 0.167%. Similarly, Dingle Johnson provides each state with a minimum of 1% funding, while the District of Columbia and territories only get one third of 1%. My amendment would correct this inequity and it would improve conservation and restoration projects and help bolster recreation programs in the non-state areas of our country. Again, I ask the committee's consent and an agreement to include these amendments in the bill. I ask if possible, the three amendments be adopted en bloc as a manager's amendment into HR2. I yield my time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garamendi.